What's up? All right, we're going to be doing the UFC Nashville predictions. Coming out with this a little bit late, but better late than never, right? So, is what it is. Let's get right into it. The biggest prospects of the card here, we got Tallison Teixeira, who's in the main event against Derrick Lewis with a 30-second knockout in his last fight. I believe it was Justin Tafa, if I remember right. Then we also have Gabriel Bonfim, who has beaten everybody basically in the UFC other than Nicholas Dalby when he gassed. Otherwise, he's submitted everybody. So that should be a fun one. And then there's Steve Garcia, who I'm gonna put as a prospect. I mean, he's not that young, but he's unranked. He's fighting Kelvin Kattar. He's been knocking out everybody. Should be super fun fight there. So yeah, those are our big prospects. And then moving on to the next slide, we are going to be going over the big veteran names in this. And of course, Derrick Lewis, probably the biggest veteran name you could get out there, really, right? That at least doesn't have a title. Derrick is super popular, just says some crazy things on the mic, but that's why we love him, right? And then we got, of course, Stephen Thompson, who's super cool. He's getting up there in age, but striking style is fun to watch, and if he gets in a fight like that, it should be fun. Although against Gabriel Bonfim, I'm not so certain that would be the style of fight that happens, but nonetheless, we have Kelvin Kattar, who absolutely puts on a show every time. Definitely has the durability and dog in him to make a fight fun, as he always does. And then finally, we have Chris Curtis, who, not really that great in all honesty, but he's a veteran name, has plenty of UFC experience, and brings a little bit of that to the card, especially on the prelims, which he is on. And then moving on to the fan favorites, we got Derrick Lewis, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, and Kelvin Kattar all there. And then we're also going to add in Nate Landwehr instead of Chris Curtis. I think people would rather watch a Nate Landwehr fight than a Chris Curtis fight. And that is simply because Nate Landwehr always, every single time, puts on a show. And that's what people are looking for. And so, yeah, I mean, Nate, he's either getting beat pretty badly or he is putting on an absolute show for everybody. It could be close, it could be not close, it doesn't really matter. He loves to play to the crowd, which is why people love him, I guess, So, anyway, moving on from that, the fight of the night, I have it as Kelvin Kattar and Steve Garcia. I just don't think Derrick Lewis, Tallison Teixeira should be that fun. I mean, it's heavyweight. There might be a moment, but beyond that, I don't expect a lot. And Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim, it's very different styles, and whoever wins that will win in great fashion, but it won't be a great fight. But Steve Garcia versus Kelvin Kattar, that's all hands, and I think those two can brawl it out. Kelvin Kattar has some of the greatest durability anyone has ever seen inside the octagon, with the amount of punches he took from Max Holloway and whatnot. And so, can Steve Garcia be the guy that breaks it? Or is Kelvin Kattar going to outdog him here and, make it turn into a pretty fun fight where Kelvin Kattar ends up winning these exchanges instead? We shall see. But yeah, that's why it's my fight of the night. Even though it might not be the highest level of opponents, it should be the most fun one, I think. So, all right, let's move on into the first fight of the night, which is Fatima Klein versus Melissa Martinez. Now, Melissa Martinez is she never fights, as you can see by her little bit of last 3 fights that I put on there. 2 are in the UFC. One is fairly recently, October 2024, and then there's 2022 and a 2019 win, all the way back in December of 2019. I mean, she barely fights at all, right? And when she does, she's fighting low-level opponents and whatnot. She has decent striking, so she's not that bad, but I don't know, man. And then there's Klein, who, first of all, is not a minus 120. She's a minus 1,200 favorite. But besides the point, Klein is a much better striker, I feel like, or at least she's a decent striker, and her grappling is pretty good as well. And she did lose her debut fight, short notice, to Jasmine Jasdavicius, but that loss is looking better each day. And, honestly, Klein is kind of a prospect in this division, if you can even call it prospect. I don't know. But she should be able to beat Martinez really anywhere in this fight that it goes. If it's, going to be a grappling match or a striking match, I don't think it really matters. And also, based on that UFC debut against Jasmine Jasudavicius, she kind of has the heart to also win a dogfight if she needs to. So I just don't really see Melissa Martinez having any sort of ability to win this fight at all, really anywhere it goes. So I am going to go with Klein by decision, and I'm giving it -500. I'm going to give Martinez a little bit of odds, but generally, when they're -1,000 or more, it's pretty much a lock. So yeah, moving on, we have Mitch Ramirez versus Mike Davis, another one where there's a huge favorite for Mike Davis here, and Mike really has only lost to kind of a little bit higher level UFC opponents, and to me, Mitch Ramirez doesn't really seem like that, right? Yeah, Mike Davis is a huge favorite here, so he really has only lost to a little bit higher level opponents, and in my opinion, Rich Ramirez is not that higher level opponent. Mike Davis lost to Thiago Moises as well as Carlos Prates, and I just don't see Ramirez as that kind of level of opponent. He's not. Mike Davis isn't far enough off from those two that, I believe he can't get this done. He's beaten Faraz Ziam, Gilbert Burns, Salik Yusuf, I should say those people have beaten Mike Davis, but I just don't see Ramirez being that level. He's not even really the level of Borshev or Mason Jones, who have both lost Mike Davis, and so, yeah, really, anywhere Mike wants to take this, he should be able to win. Because he's such a big favorite here, I'm going to go with Mike Davis by KO, first or second round. Generally, big favorites get big KOs, so that's that. I'm going to give it -500, same odds as before. Just a little puncher's chance for Mitch there. But moving on to our next fight, we have Walter Walker versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. I'm going to act like I said that correctly. Whatever. Walter Walker here, he has 2 straight heel hook victories in the UFC against heavyweights, Junior Toffa and Dontel Mays. So really top of the tier heavyweight slop there. But he also has that decision loss in April 2024 to Lucas Brzeski, who's kind of a striker. So, as long as Kennedy can kind of keep this fight on the feet, I think he should be good. He's a former light heavyweight, so he should be able to, have a little bit more agility in the cage, I would think. And doing some MMA math here, Kennedy beat Brzeski in his last outing, so he should beat Walter Walker. But seriously, he's a better striker than Walter Walker, and he should be able to win through that, just jab and stick at range if he wants to. I do worry that if Walker does get to him, it might be a little rough, but Kennedy has shown he's not that terrible. I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be, so he should be able to get this done by decision. I know heavyweight's decision, not a great idea, but I'm going to give it -150 odds, a little bit worse, but I feel pretty decent about that one, although I could definitely see Walter Walker winning, especially if this gets to the ground at all, and he does impose his will a lot, so we shall see. But a fight that I don't think is close at all is Lauren Murphy versus Eduardo, not Eduardo, I don't know why I put Eduardo, Mora here. This fight here, Lauren Murphy has first fight back in a long time, right? 2.5 years, January 2023, since her last fight. And really before that, she didn't even fight that often, as you can see as well. And she has fought some of the all-time best people in women's MMA, with losses to Jessica Andrade, Valentina Shevchenko, Sijara Eubanks, who at one point I think won the title or started with the title and then vacated it. I'm not. Besides the point, high level UFC opponents there, and she's gotten beaten by them, and she has decent wins against Andrea Lee, Joanne Wood, Miesha Tate, so not terrible there, but Eduarda, she actually has finishing potential. And against somebody like Lauren Murphy who doesn't, I can't really see Lauren Murphy winning then. Eduarda's path to victory is through her grappling. She is a great grappler who has a great ground game. She can finish via ground and pound or a rear naked choke. Really, grappling's her biggest advantage, but I think her striking's actually decent enough that she can, stay on the feet if she needs to against a Lauren Murphy and win. And so, really, what it comes down to is that Eduarda Moura is not fighting her last fight in the UFC. Lauren Murphy made it clear she's retiring after this, I'm pretty sure. So she should be kind of 1 foot out the door, not really looking to win this. I think she's tough. She shows a lot of ability to survive. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Moura and by 3rd round submission just because of the fact that Lauren Murphy's been in there with some pretty great UFC opponents. But she won't survive it all, and she should lose. So Eduarda Moura will win that one. But Jake Matthews versus Chidi Njokuani. Oh my God, Njokuani. I'm gonna get it right eventually. Chidi. I'm so sorry. But Jake Matthews, decent fighter from Australia. He's kind of well-rounded, honestly. He's taking the fight kind of wherever he wants to. Or where he thinks he has an advantage. So he's got a lot of losses on his name, on his record here in the UFC, but they're all kind of to decent opponents, right? He's got a loss to Sean Brady, Michael Morales, 2016 Kevin Lee, which at the time, not too bad of a loss there. So really, he's beaten most everyone else, but lost to the top of the tier echelon opponents there. And he does pretty decently against strikers, so that kind of makes me feel better about it because he struggles against grapplers, but strikers, he's not so much of a problem. And Chidi is mostly a striker. First of all, he missed weight today for it, so he missed by 1 pound, so not too bad, but that's kind of a problem. But he's got some losses to Gregory Rodriguez and Ola Jacek, and decent wins against Dusko Todorovic and Marc-Andre Barrio and Reese McKee. So, that's not the same level, right, as what Jake Matthews has been fighting. And all of those kind of have good striking styles, so they're kind of playing into Chidi's style. But Jake Matthews is smart, and I don't think he's going to do that. He'll mix it up. And, he does good against strikers. Jake Matthews does good against strikers. And so I think he should be able to pull this victory out, actually. I think it'll be close no matter what. But both guys have a lot of UFC experience. I just think Jake Matthews has seen better than Chidi and should be able to mix it up enough to win a round or two here. I could see a close 29-28, this was a robbery type of fight, maybe even split decision type thing. But I'm going to go with Jake Matthews by decision and very, very, very slight favorite there. So moving on, we got Max Griffin versus Chris Curtis. These are pretty decent fights, right? I mean, for the prelims of a fight night, maybe I'm not used to this, and maybe I'm used to just terrible Apex cards, but Max Griffin, he really only loses to top 25, 30 rated welterweights. He's got losses to Alex Morono, Thiago Alves, Neil Magny, Michael Chiesa. All a lot of recent losses for Max here. And yeah, they're close fights or split decisions, but he just doesn't really do enough to win a lot of these fights. And against somebody like Chris Curtis, who is that top 20, top 15 almost welterweight, he's just the kind of guy that Max Griffin loses to. Good wins, knockout wins for Chris Curtis against Brendan Allen and Joaquin Buckley. I mean, those are good wins, right? And I just think he's on a different level, and Max Griffin will let fights fall away from him. And Chris Curtis puts on a lot of pressure and pace on people. And for that reason, I just don't really see Max being able to grapple or, really do anything in the striking to throw Chris Curtis off. So he should be able to win this. I'm going to go by KO, man. I mean, Chris Curtis, he's decent, all right? He's not a decision machine like I think he would be. Max Griffin is not he's just not that good, man. I don't know what to say. I'm going to go by KO. Definitely could be a decision, though. I would not blame you at all for that. This might be just a boring match here. But I'm going to give Chris Curtis decent odds here. I just don't really see Max Griffin having anything to put off Chris Curtis's style. All right. We're moving on to the main card here, and Junior Tafa is starting it off for everybody. Now, Junior Tafa, former heavyweight, coming down to light heavyweight to face Tuco Tucos. What a name there. Both of them got a lot of losses on their resume here. Really, Junior Tafa, he's lost in a lot of ways recently, and the only way he really wins is through brawling. Getting submitted by Walter Walker via heel hook is kind of crazy, as well as like losing a striking match to Muhammad Usman. These are just like low level heavyweights here. And moving down to light heavyweight, I mean, the level is, I wouldn't say that much better, but lighter weight classes are a little more technical. And so I don't feel great about Tafa here. But he is facing Tucos, and Tucos, not the greatest fighter, right? Tucos, he has a lot of losses as well, especially to grapplers. So, he lost, or I should say the other way around. He lost to a lot of strikers, but won against a bunch of grapplers. And, he lost to Navajo Sterling in his last fight, which isn't really that bad of a loss. I mean, Sterling's a decent prospect. Man, though, he has decent takedowns, and that's where I just think he should be able to get Tafa down, and Tafa has heavyweight division level grappling defense. Tucos might be able to just out grapple him, really, is what it comes down to. I don't know, man. This is a tough fight to pick because it's so low level. That's really it. It's so low level that I don't know what to expect from anyone. If anyone improved at all, they might instantly win this fight a little bit. Tafa scares me if I choose him because he has such heavyweight bad, striking and whatnot, grappling as well. But Tucos, he's not very smart, and the power of Tafa scares me a little to pick Tucos as well. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with Tucos via third round submission. I think Tafa gasses maybe, and in a clinch exchange or something, Tafa gives up his back, kind of drops to a knee, and Tucos just takes it. I don't know, man. I don't feel great about it, but I'm gonna give Tucos decent odds on it. Yeah, that's what I'm going with here. But a fight I do feel good about is Vitor Petrino versus Austin Lane. First of all, I know Petrino is moving up to heavyweight, and that he kind of got brutally knocked out in his last fight not too long ago in December. I mean, 7 months, decent amount of time, but not great, right? Against Dustin Jacoby, which was a great knockout for Jacoby, by the way. But he also lost to Anthony Smith via guillotine. I mean, he put his head into it and just let him have it, and man, that is bad. But Petrino is a decent, well-rounded fighter, and I think he should be able to win in any method he chooses a lot of the time. Whereas Austin Lane, he has lost brutally in a lot of his recent fights via brutal knockouts. He did win a 3-round decision against Rebelis de Spain, which kind of impressive considering he gets knocked out by everybody that he didn't get knocked out by Despain, who was at the time a knockout artist. I think this was actually after the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight, but besides the point. Austin Lane just, he's not that great of a grappler. He's also not that great of a striker, and Petrino is a big favorite for a reason. He's more technical, coming from light heavyweight going up to heavyweight. He can grapple. He should just be faster in general than Lane, and I just don't see anything of value coming from Lane's side of the fight that he could do to finish Vitor Petrino. He has maybe decent power, but even then, Petrino is smart, and he doesn't really get hit that often. I know he lost to Jacoby at the end of his punch, which I could see Lane doing, but I don't know. I don't feel like this is really that close. Petrino seems to have a lot more skills here. I'm going to go with second round KO. I see him like mounting him and just fight back, and Austin Lane just covers up and doesn't. So, yeah, I'm going with him by KO. Petrino by KO, I should say, with -400 odds. But a fight that I think's fairly close as well is Nate Landwehr versus Morgan Charrier, the Frenchman. Landwehr got beat bad in his last fight against Du Ho Choi, and really also lost recently, June 2023, to Dan Ige as well. But the big thing here is that Nate Landwehr, when he fights, they're fun, exciting fighters, but he does take a decent amount of damage when he fights. And Morgan Charrier, he did get knocked down in his last fight against Nathaniel Wood, and it didn't look great, but he has decent power. Charrier has decent power. He's knocked out people before. And more importantly, he will scrap a little bit. He did, second and third round against Nathaniel Wood looked decent. Obviously, he lost those rounds, but he didn't look terrible like he was about to lose the fight via knockout or anything. And he couldn't get close enough to, Charrier, I should say, couldn't get close enough to Wood to really do anything with his punches. But against somebody like Nate Landwehr, I mean, come on, it's going to be a brawl. Great matchmaking here, but Nate gets hit a lot. Morgan's pretty slick in the pocket, and I don't like that for Nate at all. I can see Morgan winning 75% of the fight, but Nate having a lot of moments, crowd really getting into it, really loving him with that fight. And, I just think that Nate, he does have a lot of cardio and pressure, but he's not that technical, and Morgan should be able to be smart enough to outdo him there. And so I see a Morgan decision, 29 or 30-27, 29-28, close last round type of thing, where Nate comes back a little bit. He'll have his moments, of course, but Morgan should be able to pull out this victory. And I give him pretty decent odds, 2-1, right? So, yeah, that's that fight. But the third fight on this fight card is going to be Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia. Recently I've been thinking about this, and this is a really good fight for a third fight on the pay-per-view, or third to last fight, not pay-per-view, oh my goodness, third to last fight on a fight night. I always remember, maybe this is just recently, but I remember it being very, very, very poor quality fight nights recently. And so seeing a decently named person like Calvin Kattar, third from the top, I like that. I like that a lot. But let's get into the fight, actually. Very close here, as the odds suggest. Calvin Kattar, though, on a 4-fight loss streak to a lot of people, but these losses, I mean, some of them are kind of difficult to get mad at, right? A loss to Arnold Allen via injury. He hurt his knee. I'm not going to take too much out of that loss, right? And his other loss there, Josh Emmett, a lot of people consider that a robbery. And so, we can dismiss those a little bit. Although knee injury, you'd want to see him come back, which he did against somebody like Yusuf Zalal, and he got outclassed in round 1 and 2 from range, and got picked apart. And same thing happened with the Max Holloway fight, which was his 4th, another loss there, and his 4-fight losing streak. So really, his only real losses that I would think about when predicting a fight are to people who jab and stick and kind of stay a little bit farther out of Kelvin's punching range. But then, there are people like Steve Garcia who are not like that. He will brawl with Kelvin Kattar, and that is such an interesting fight to see because Steve Garcia, he's on a 5-fight winning streak, so he's on the opposite trajectory of Kelvin Kattar, and he's been beaten fairly decent unranked featherweights here, like I believe it was Chase Hooper was one of them. I'm forgetting the other ones, but he beat them all via 1st or 2nd round KO, so he's a good striker with a lot of power. But is that going to be enough to knock out somebody like Kelvin Kattar? Man, I don't know. And the other thing to consider is Kelvin Kattar going to be able to knock out Steve Garcia either? Is it going to go the other way? Well, to be honest, Kelvin Kattar hasn't knocked anyone out in the past 5 years, so I'm not really going to think about that. Steve Garcia has a lot of momentum, and Kelvin Kattar doesn't. But can Steve Garcia knock out Kelvin Kattar? Like I talked about when I was talking about the prospects, I believe, or maybe it was the veteran names. Kelvin Kattar has an insane chin. He can take a lot of damage, and is the damage going to catch up to him here in the Garcia fight? I don't know. Kelvin Kattar looked decent when he had his striking down. He was pressuring Zalal forward in the 3rd round, and it was good, but it's not enough for me to feel good about picking Kelvin Kattar with the trajectory that he has currently, as well as how Steve Garcia is doing in his most recent fights. I know Kattar doesn't get knocked out, but I think it might be time. He's showing cracks. He's showing cracks in the fighting. And I think that, Garcia will probably win this via 1st round knockout. And that's what I'm going to go with. I'm giving it very, very, very bad odds, though. And I do 100% see a way where Kattar wins this via, outlasting Garcia. Garcia is throwing a lot into it and not being able to knock out Kelvin Kattar. And so, yeah, I could see that, but I don't know, man. The trajectories, the momentum doesn't make me feel good about picking a Kelvin Kattar, which is why I'm going to go with Garcia. And then we got the second to last fight on this fight card, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Gabriel Bonfim. And, I kind of hope this is Thompson's last time coming into the octagon, especially if he loses this fight, because it'll be a 3-fight losing streak. Really 5 out of the last 6 if he loses, because he's lost 4 out of the last 5. And his last win was to Kevin Holland, which, I mean, how much does that really hold anymore? Because he didn't even, he only struck with Thompson. So that, besides the point, I would just kind of consider it 4 straight losses at this point for Steven. And if he loses to Bonfim, I don't know, man. It might be time. I don't want to see you get knocked out or submitted anymore against these up-and-coming people, since the UFC seems intent on giving you people that are going to be fighting up into the rankings here, like Shavkat that we saw. So, or we even saw, Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad out-grapple Steven, I believe. Those are just not fun fights for him. He should be doing fun fights at this point in his career. And this doesn't feel like it. So, and his loss to Joaquin Buckley, too. He fought a more fun fighter there, but a nice up-and-coming explosive fighter knocking out Steven. I mean, man, that doesn't feel good. But nonetheless, let's put that all aside. Steven has a long-range style. And even at his old age, he has decent grappling. But people have shown that if you grapple him a lot, you can beat him. Gilbert Burns did it. I believe that Shavkat did it as well. It took a couple rounds to get there in the clinch, but in the end, Stephen Thompson did get submitted. Not by Gilbert Burns, but he did get submitted by Shavkat there. And Bonfim, he has been doing awesome lately. He has won 3 of his last 4, I believe, and he's been ending fights with the grappling in his UFC fights. He gassed against Nicholas Dalby, which is his only loss on his record there. But, I just don't see Wonder Boy being as strong and having the ability to grapple as well as a Nicholas Dalby and survive that. And so, unfortunately, it will be a sad night for UFC fans, but Gabriel Bonfim will win by submission. And I'll give him second round rear naked choke here. Just because Thompson is smart. He won't be able to win this or let Bonfim win this in 1. But, he's getting old. I think he might even be the oldest fighter on the UFC roster. And Bonfim's an up-and-coming grappler, which is the exact style you don't want Thompson to be fighting right now. So, yeah, I'm giving him pretty decent odds. Those odds above there feel crazy considering that Bonfim gassed against a Nicholas Dalby, who is not at all on the level of what Stephen Thompson was, but at his age, I understand it. So, all right, we are on to the main event of the evening, which is Derrick Lewis fighting, I should say, Tallison Teixeira. And Tallison Teixeira made it look easy in his last fight against Justin Tafa in the clinch. He just hit him with a good elbow right over the top, and his striking is dangerous. And Derrick Lewis, on the other hand, same story there. I mean, this guy has more experience than Tallison Teixeira will probably ever have in the heavyweight division at this point. He's fought everybody and anybody. He beat a lot of awesome names like Curtis Blades, Alexander Volkov, Francis Ngannou, Travis Brown. I mean, these are all great fights, but we can't look at the past because at this point in Derrick Lewis's career, he's lost a lot of fights recently. I know his record doesn't suggest that, but, he's lost to a lot of grapplers as well as some power punchers, and that doesn't make me feel good against Teixeira at all. Teixeira is long, he's rangy, and he's good in the clinch. He has decent grappling when he goes to it, and so, man, that makes me feel bad for Derrick because I just don't think this is the style he shouldn't fight, right? Derrick shouldn't be fighting grapplers who will out-grapple him or a power striker who will just hit him with a long hook or something, and Derrick will pretend like he's not hurt, but he is. Man, I don't like that, but it is a Derrick Lewis fight, and he could win. I mean, he always pulls it out somehow. But I'm just going with Teixeira by KO. I could see this going into the second, maybe third round. I'm praying to God this doesn't go into the 5th round because this will just be god-awful. But if it does, put money on Derrick Lewis. He will knock Teixeira out in the 5th round if it came down to it. But I hope that doesn't happen because it will be heavyweight slop at that point. I don't know. I just see a clinch scenario and Derrick Lewis not being able to take it anymore, unfortunately. And so I'm giving Teixeira the odds here. And yeah. All right, let's move on to the betting odds. Let's go over a couple of things I wanted to note here. The underdog decision rate is 62%, which is 8. Obviously, the math is a little off here, but it's 8% higher than the regular decision odds of 55%, as you can see there in the middle. What that means is you should bet, if you're going to bet on underdogs, maybe they'll win by decision more than they will by KO. So don't choose underdogs if they're going to win by KO. Cough, cough, Derrick Lewis, maybe. Just throwing it out there. Otherwise, the next one we got is 84% victory rate for minus 300 favorites, which is 9% higher than the average victory rate for favorites. And what that means is if they're a big favorite, you might be able to make pretty decent money on them for that. So I would go with that. Women's KO rate, 15%. We have a couple of women's fights on here. Yeah, I'm not betting any KOs at all for any of them. It's all by decision or submission. It's really the only way women win. 15%, man, that is just terrible. So don't choose that if you're going to choose something about women's fights. And lastly, that minus 300 favorites are going to decision 44% of the time, or 10% less than usual. Basically what that means is if you are going to pick a big favorite, maybe pick them by KO or submission. Not as likely to win by decision. 44%, not terrible, right? I mean, that's 40% of the time, basically. 45, 4 out of 10 times they're winning that way. But if they have any sort of finishing potential, I might go that route instead. So yeah, a lot of favorites. You can win decent money if you parlay a lot of these minus 300 favorites. Like I said, 84% of the time they win. So that's a decent amount there that you can win. $164 if you bet 100 on that. And if you put all the favorites together, there's a couple of close fights that really boost that up. But you could win $4,600, which is a lot there. So yeah, Fatima Klein, Mike Davis, Eduarda Mora, Chris Curtis, Vitor Petrino. I feel good about all those fighters winning. So yeah, I'd go with them. Then we got some statistical analysis. I just did a little bit of it. Basically what I did was I looked at a couple of things, all their stats on the UFC website that they have available, and I kind of used them to find points that I like. So for example, fight efficiency versus fight finish potential on the left. Basically, I want to see them being efficient in their fights and winning, finishing fights. That would show me that they're a good fighter. So you can see somebody like Gabriel Bonfim is not getting hit very much. He's getting all his takedowns and not getting taken down very much. And he's finishing the fight. That makes me feel good about him beating a Thompson like that. You can also see Steve Garcia up there as well. On the other side of things, you see people like Calvin Kattar, or Lauren Murphy or Walter Walker, who are in that opposite left, right, or left bottom quadrant. And that one, that means they're kind of getting hit a lot and they're not really finishing their opponent. That makes me feel not good about picking them, because it means they're probably losing a decision a lot. And if they can't finish the fight, if they're losing a decision, that's not good, right? If you can see Tallison Teixeira all the way on the right, he finishes his fights very quickly. And he might not be the most efficient, but he'll get them out of there. And that adds a lot more to wanting to choose him than it would if he was on the other side of the graph with no finish potential. So that's that first left hand graph. The middle one there, offense versus defense, you can kind of see how people are doing. Again, you want to be in that top right quadrant. So you can see Gabriel Bonfim again up there. And you can see Tallison Teixeira, decent defense. These dudes will not get hit very much, or won't get taken down, or won't get submitted at all. And then they're the ones doing the knocking down, submitting people. That is really where I'm looking. And you can see somebody like Mitch Ramirez, who's a huge underdog. He gets hit a lot and he doesn't hit back. That makes me feel not good at all about picking him. And same thing with a Derrick Lewis. He doesn't put a lot out there, and he gets hit a lot. That doesn't make me feel great. So that's kind of the analysis there on that middle one. And then our final one is durability versus pace and volume. This one's kind of like, hey, if this is going to decision, I'll look at this one a little bit. So you can see somebody like Calvin Kattar, awesome durability. As you can see, he gets hit a lot, but he survives. He never gets knocked down ever. That makes me feel decent if it's going to a decision, that he's going to be able to make it there. He's not going to get finished. But then you see somebody like Tallison Teixeira, Gabriel Bonfim. They put on high paces. They could gas a little bit, right? But they're not probably getting finished immediately in the first round because their durability is decent. So that's kind of where I'm looking. You can see people like Austin Lane getting knocked out immediately and not putting a huge pace on his opponent against Kennedy. That doesn't make me feel great because, you know, Kennedy can knock him out, and if he's not putting that much out there, doesn't make me want to choose Austin Lane that much. And so you can see a little bit of that. But yeah, I just thought I'd put together a little bit of statistical analysis there about those fights. And then moving on, final thing we're going to go over is the card review. You know, I give it a 4.25 out of 10. It's not terrible. You know, there's like about 4-5 good fights on this card out of like 12. So I like that. Like I said, 2.5 big fights. I would give Tallison Teixeira, Derrick Lewis, the Calvin Kattar, Steve Garcia, Bonfim versus Thompson, all those fights, you know, I'd give a couple of them, maybe those 3 big fights. But other than that, nothing huge. Chris Curtis, you know, is that really a big fight? I wouldn't consider it a big fight. And then at the bottom, you can see my prediction rate so far. Not too bad recently. 7 out of 10, though, for confident picks. Not good. Not good. So I'll have to get better there. But yeah, that is the UFC Nashville predictions. Teixeira versus Lewis. I hope you guys liked the video. And if you did, make sure you like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you later. Peace out.